Hello YouTube.
Hello, Jacob.
Today I'm going to discuss 8 questions that I know for a fact no atheist can answer.
Wow, that's an arrogant claim. What you got for me then?
The first question is, if morality isn't objective, does that mean that what Hitler did during the Holocaust isn't inherently wrong?
Sorry, I couldn't resist. All right, sorry. Go ahead. Go on.
But in fact, our actions are just the consequence of nature. Can anyone truly say that what Hitler did wasn't wrong? That it was only nature?
To Hitler at the time, it wasn't wrong. He likely thought he was doing a service to his country. We are the ones who create a moral code and declare something to be wrong, and we do that using reason and empathy. We do it to help our species survive. Even if your God created morality and enforced it, why would or should his morality supersede our own? How did this creature come to the conclusion that killing people was wrong, for example? Humans aren't even the only animals that display moral codes or codes of conduct. For example, some research suggests animals have a sense of outrage when social codes are violated. Chimpanzees may punish other chimps for violating certain rules of the social order. Male bluebirds that catch their female partner stepping out may beat the female, said Hal Herzog, a psychologist at Western Carolina University who studies how humans think about animals. And there are many examples of animals demonstrating ostensibly compassionate or empathetic behaviors towards other animals, including humans. In one experiment, hungry rhesus monkeys refused to electrically shock their fellow monkeys, even when it meant getting food for themselves. In another study, a female gorilla named Binti rescued an unconscious 3-year-old human boy who had fallen into her enclosure at the Brookline Zoo in Illinois, protecting the child from other gorillas and even calling for human help. And when a car hit and injured a dog on a busy Chilean freeway several years ago, its canine compatriot dodged traffic, risking its life to drag the unconscious dog to safety. All those examples suggest that animals have some sense of right and wrong, Roland said. I think what's at the heart of following morality is the emotions, Roland said. Evidence suggests that animals can act on those sorts of emotions. So as you can see, just because we create moral codes doesn't mean those codes are any less important or valuable. Our ethics continue to change. Our language allows us to talk about our ethics and shape and spread those ideas. Take vegans, for example. Some vegans think it's unethical to eat meat. I would probably say most vegans think it's unethical to eat meat. A meat eater can sit down with a vegan and talk about whether or not it's ethical to eat meat, and perhaps by the end of the discussion, one of them will have changed their mind. If it were objectively wrong to eat meat, we'd all instinctually know that it's wrong, and veganism should be a worldwide phenomenon. We create our morals. It seems self-evident to me since we see different ethical codes around the world. Different cultures practice different ethics, and as a species, we generally only agree on a few basic codes of conduct. That's not what you'd expect to find if morality was an objective fact.
Question 2. If your meaning to life is subjective and your sense of purpose in life is truly meaningless when you take into account how brief it is in the geological timescale and how the universe will one day be destroyed, why do you try so hard, or why do you hold others to your subjective moral standards? Why do you judge God? Why do you feel the need to judge God?
That's more than one question, but let's start with my life being meaningless. I don't think my life is meaningless right here and right now. Just because something doesn't last forever doesn't mean it's meaningless. My life also has meaning to the people in my life, such as my girlfriend, friends, family, and so on. As far as the universe is concerned, I am meaningless. In the big scheme of things, I am smaller than a grain of sand, standing on a minuscule pebble, orbiting a tiny spark in a vast ocean we call space. And that's okay. The universe doesn't have to care whether I'm alive or not, because I care. The people around me care. At this moment in time, that's what matters to me. Second, I don't judge God. I don't think God exists. What I tend to do is judge the ideas and truth claims religion has produced. I also judge the actions of religious believers who use their religion as motivation for actions I would deem to be either ethical or unethical. For example, if Christianity motivates someone to go out and volunteer in a soup kitchen, then all the power to them. I might wish they'd do it for different reasons, but I'm not going to argue against their action. On the other hand, if someone thinks killing apostates is a moral action, I would definitely argue against it and the ideology that might have played a role in the shaping of what I would consider to be an extremely unethical belief and behavior.
Question 3. What proof do you have to say that God doesn't exist? To prove that God doesn't exist, you have to have a logical reason as to why the universe came into existence out of the eternal realm of nothingness.
I don't need any proof to say I don't believe God exists. I don't believe the claims you and people like you make. It's up to you to prove your claims. How our universe began is a separate question. Just because we don't know something doesn't mean you get to assert your particular brand of deity is the correct answer. If you want to make that claim, you need to present some evidence to support it.
Question 4. Where and why did the universe pop into existence out of the Big Bang? Where did the multiverse pop out of? If there was no universe made out of space-time, does that mean that the universe just popped out of an eternal realm of nothingness?
There are scientific hypotheses that propose an eternal universe. I'll leave a link in the description box if you want to read about one of them. As for the multiverse, I'm not sold on it yet. I think it's an interesting hypothesis, but it's certainly not a fact or even an accepted theory at this point.
Question 5. Where did life come from and how? How do you explain the fine-tuning of the universe? That means that there are hundreds of thousands of conditions that needed to be met so that the universe could come into existence or even support life.
You called this video 8 questions atheists can never answer, but you seem to enjoy sticking 2 questions under the heading of 1. Again, even if we don't know exactly how life began, that doesn't mean you get to stick your supernatural deity into the gap of knowledge. That's not how it works. However, scientists do have a number of ideas about how life arose on planet Earth. For example, the first living things on Earth, single-celled microorganisms or microbes lacking a cell nucleus or cell membrane known as prokaryotes, seem to have first appeared on Earth almost 4 billion years ago, just a few 100 million years after the formation of the Earth itself. By far the longest portion of the history of life on Earth, therefore, has involved the biochemical evolution of these single-celled microorganisms, bacteria and archaea, whatever. We can find individual fossilized microbes in rocks 3.4 billion years old, yet we can only conclusively identify multicelled fossils in rocks younger than 1 billion years. Of course, there are still a lot of questions surrounding how life first started on Earth, but there's absolutely no reason to stick a supernatural being into that knowledge gap. It means we have to keep asking questions and continue to gather evidence. As for the fine-tuning argument, if the conditions were different, we might find different forms of life. You might not find human life, but that doesn't mean life wouldn't exist in one form or another. Even now we find life in what we'd consider extremely inhospitable parts of the Earth. We find life in volcanoes and in the crushing depths of the ocean. In space you'd die within minutes, yet the tardigrade, or water bear, can survive the vacuum of space.
Question 6. Why did the first organism need to consume food or energy to survive if it came into existence out of stardust? What drove it to survive?
Well, the first organisms weren't like you and I. For example, for the first billion or so years of life on Earth, the only organisms were chemosynthetic bacteria, which grew as mats in shallow seas and by volcanic hydrothermal vents. The very first cells probably metabolized hydrogen sulfide and carbon monoxide. Eventually, photosynthetic bacteria evolved and used sunlight to build sugars from carbon dioxide and water. Organisms that eat other organisms didn't emerge until around 1.2 billion years ago, over 2 billion years after life first emerged. As for why an organism would need energy, we can look to thermodynamics. Let's briefly review some fundamentals of thermodynamics. All organisms require energy to persist and replace themselves. And the ultimate source of practically all Earth's energy is the sun. One could think of the sun as feeding the Earth via its radiant energy. But 99% or more of this incident solar radiation goes unused by organisms and is lost as heat and heat of evaporation. Only about 1% is actually captured by plants in photosynthesis and stored as chemical energy. Moreover, energy available from sunlight varies widely over the Earth's surface, both in space and in time.
Question 7. Where did DNA come from? And how did something so complicated randomly come into existence? It is said that one single DNA cell can hold the equivalent to 4,800 books of information.
We don't know exactly how the first DNA came to be, but scientists appear to be getting closer to an answer. For example, the latest twist in the origin of life table is double helical. Chemists are close to demonstrating that the building blocks of DNA can form spontaneously from chemicals thought to be present on the primordial Earth. If they succeed, their work would suggest that DNA could have predated the birth of life. DNA is essential to almost all life on Earth, yet most biologists think that life began with RNA. Just like DNA, it stores genetic information. What's more, RNA can fold into complex shapes that can clamp onto other molecules and speed up chemical reactions. Just like protein, it is structurally simpler than DNA, so it might be easier to make. After decades of trying, in 2009, researchers finally managed to generate RNA using chemicals that probably exist only on the early Earth. Matthew Poner, now at... that's a cool name, Poner. It was made for the internet. Anyways, now at the University College London, and his colleagues synthesized 2 of the 4 nucleotides that make up RNA. Their achievement suggested that RNA may have formed spontaneously. Powerful support for the idea that life began in an RNA world. And other scientists are working on it from different angles. For example, some think it might have something to do with the quantum, but regardless, again, not knowing doesn't give you license to stick your particular deity into the gap. I honestly don't understand why so many theists think that not knowing something lends their god credence. It's like they believe that a bad answer is better than no answer, while other people find the question intriguing and set out to find the answer, rather than jump to a supernatural conclusion.
Question 8. What evidence is there for the changing of kinds?
Do you mean transitional forms, because we find them everywhere?
We all know that there are thousands of species of the same kind of animal, like there are several kinds of dogs and several kinds of cats. But there is nothing in the record of evolution that proves that one kind of animal, like a fish, can ever evolve into a human.
There's plenty of evidence for the slow evolution of fish into mammals, including humans. I'll leave some links below to articles like The Anatomical Clues to Human Evolution from Fish, and How Fish Evolved into Humans, as well as a Berkeley article called From Water to Land.
Cats are always cats, and humans are always humans. Some people say that because we all share DNA, that we are therefore all related. However, DNA and matter can merely be the mechanism God used to create all animals with, and he made each slightly different.
No, sir, we all know that it was the God Killer, the lazy-eyed, invisible, supernatural entity known as the Pink Dragon.
Oh, jeez.
So, DNA and matter can simply be a mechanism used by God, which he used to create all of his creatures, and he made all of us slightly different.
Where did this God get this material? Did he magic it into existence?
I know these 8 questions will never be answered because they cannot be scientifically deducted or answered. But I challenge you guys to try to answer them. So good luck, atheists, and God bless.
I didn't have a hard time answering them, so you might want to give that title of yours a rethink. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching, and cheers!